An introduction to political philosophy. And the introduction will be given in the form of an interpretation of a Platonic dialogue called the Meno. I have therefore to do first four things. I have to explain four things. First, what is political philosophy? Second, why do we need an introduction to political philosophy? Third point, why does this introduction take the form of an interpretation of a Platonic dialogue? And last, why did I choose the Meno? I begin at the beginning. What is political philosophy? And a very simple reflection suffices to explain what political philosophy means. All political action is concerned with either preservation or change. When it is concerned with change, it is concerned with change for the better. When it is concerned with preservation, it is concerned with avoiding that something worse comes. Therefore, all political action presupposes opinions of better and worse. But you cannot have an opinion of better and worse without having an opinion of good or bad. But when you see that you follow an opinion, you are by this very fact driven to try to find knowledge to replace opinion by knowledge. Therefore, all political action points by itself toward knowledge of the good. Now, the complete political good we call the good society, and therefore all political action points to the question of the good society, and political philosophy can be defined as a quest for the good society. Today there are quite a few people who are doubtful whether one can speak of the good society, because that would imply that there is a common good. And for some reasons they think there couldn't be a common good. But quite a few of these people speak, for example, of the great society, which is another form of the good society, and only one doesn't know why great society is preferable to good society. At least it has never been explained to us. And others speak of the open society, which is also a form of the good society, and we are not told why the open society is a better term than the good society. Be this as it may, one can only verbally reject the quest for the good society. And this is a concern of political philosophy. Now I have to correct myself immediately. While this reasoning which I sketched seems to be evident to the meanest capacities, its value, its power to convince, has decayed in modern times, in our age. Will you open the window, please? It is very hot here. And this fact makes it necessary to engage in an introduction to political philosophy. Now, the reasoning justifying, legitimating political philosophy has lost its power to convince for the following reason. Political philosophy is today regarded by many people, especially in the academic professions, as impossible, on two different but related grounds, which we indicate by the words science and history. I speak first of science. The view which asserts that political philosophy is impossible because of science, with a view to science, we may call positivism. According to this view, the only form of genuine knowledge is scientific knowledge. And scientific knowledge cannot say anything about the good society, because science knows only facts or relations of facts or laws regarding facts, and it cannot distinguish between true and untrue values, between sound and unsound values. The distinction between facts and values is a characteristic feature of positivism as we know it today. Now let me illustrate it by an example. Tocqueville, in his famous book on democracy in America, seems to say, at least at first glance, that the case for democracy is in itself not stronger than the case for aristocracy. Democracy has its particular virtues and vices, and so has aristocracy. But, Tocqueville continues, Providence has decided in favor of democracy. Practically, there is no longer a choice. We have to make the best of democracy. We cannot have a romantic longing for aristocracy. What Tocqueville understands by providence is now called by most people who speak in these terms history, the capital H. History has decided in favor of democracy. Now, in the first decade of this century, a famous student of society, Max Weber, argued against Tocqueville and other people of this kind as follows. One cannot pass the responsibility to history. We do not know the future, and we cannot know it. And one reason being because what the future will be depends very much on our decisions. History is not inevitable. So if we reconsider the difficulty discussed by Tocqueville, we must leave it at the unresolved and unsolvable conflict, say, between democracy and aristocracy. A case can be made for each of these alternatives, and each of us has to make his own decision. What Max Weber implied, but never said clearly enough, is one cannot make a case for everything. One can only make a case for some things which are respectable. One cannot make a case for any whim. In post-Weberian social science, as we have it today, this Weberian view, which was still a qualified, quote, relativism, unquote, has become an unqualified relativism. No case can be made for any values. Values are non-rational preferences. Arguments are mere, quote, rationalizations, unquote. Now, you, I suppose, are all familiar with this position because it is the reigning view in the profession, and you will hear it even in high school, if my information is correct. Now, it would seem to be a rational demand that we have to see whether there is not a case for democracy, a rational argument in favor of democracy, and we have to state this case, if we can, of course, at its highest level, excluding all ideologies. But we would also have to learn to state the case for the alternative to democracy, so that we are in a position to judge and to state this at its highest level. For all practical purposes, this would mean that we have to know Plato and Aristotle and to study them, to hear the case for aristocracy, and so that we can contrast it with the case for democracy. But this only in passing. The difficulty to which this positivism, or as one can also say social science relativism, is exposed, can be seen most simply if one raises this question. What is a value? After all, when you talk so much about facts and values, you must know what a value is. But if we attempt to answer this question, what is a value, we would see that it is at the same time a value question. For example, if you say a value is every object of desire, which is a very popular answer, then indeed every possible object of desire is a value. But if you take a somewhat more complicated case, that someone has a desire for something, say for smoking, but he disapproves of it. Is smoking his value? Is not what he considerately and deliberately approves or disapproves much more a value? What a man chooses deliberately, is this not much more a value than a mere object of desire, a mere whim? Now, in the latter case, if a value is